Thank you for coming to tonight's screening of My Friends, the Comedians. Please ensure that you have your cell phone silenced. Enjoy the show.
Hello, fellow joke enthusiasts, comedy connoisseurs, and champions of chuckle. Welcome back to the show. If you're new here, my name is Jacob Marscola, and this is My Friends, the Comedians, a podcast where I sit down with a friend and discuss the mysterious, delirious, and unserious realm of comedy. Man, that intro takes a lot out of me. Sitting across from me is a friend of mine who is also a comedian, a returner to the show, actually the first person to return to the show, because the last time we had him on, it took us a little bit to get to the end of his comedy story, at least as far as you know it. So we're returning here with Mr. Andrew Mister.
I'm a real yapper.
I can't wait.
I love to talk.
Mm-hmm. He was like, I'm going to take so long on the first recording that you're going to have to bring me back to finish.
I did text you. I was like,
he did.
I'm back in the area if you want to finish
That
this.
isn't an exaggeration, but I was like, I don't want to cliffhang this for too long. It's weird for me sitting here because we're recording this after I finally returned from my hiatus of recording these with people, so I'm going to have to get back in the groove. So it's good that you mostly have to tell a story for this episode, and I just kind of get to sit here. But welcome back. You said you're here for, how was your drive, sir?
It was good. It was incredibly rainy, and I was listening to Harry Potter on tape during the drive because I've never read the books. My dad read them to me, which was a very wonderful thing he did for me growing up. And so I have some of his memory of him reading it, the movies, which I've seen a bunch of times, and I just rewatched them with Siobhan, and I was like, I want to listen to the books, because everyone talks about how different they are.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's about time that I listen to them and, appreciate the differences and spot stuff. And it was, small things from the jump, just Hagrid's motorcycle is Sirius Black's.
Yeah.
And he borrows it.
Mm-hmm. Which isn't really mentioned.
Yeah.
Although there's not areas in the movies where they retcon that. They just don't say anything.
Yeah, but it's to have the foresight to put that detail there, and then in two books, that's Sirius Black is the story. Mm-hmm. And to hear that then, it was oh yeah, he was a good guy, and I understand how everyone flipped on him, but on that night people still trusted him. Mm-hmm. And then days later they were this guy sucks.
Yeah.
And it made me think, I wonder how Hagrid felt riding that bike and being this guy got these two people I adored killed.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I think I have to wonder, because I'm wondering stuff gets cut from movies, but when they were making that first Harry Potter movie, do you think they were we might not get to make another one, it might not get received well, so let's not set things up, let's just have a good one movie? I assume that's maybe how it went, unless, I'm sure people were excited, but I'm sure they were also waiting to see, is it going to succeed?
I have to imagine they knew they were going to make more simply because the books, a few of them had already been out, right?
No, the series wasn't done, yeah.
But maybe 3 or 4 of them were already out?
Yeah, 3 or 4. I think they knew this was an expanded universe, but I think my question is, do you think they were well, we might fuck it up and not get to make another one, so let's just not.
I don't think so. I think with how well the books were doing, they were there's going to be money in this, and we'll go a few of them before we decide to quit this or not.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. It's that, because you're right, that detail, that would be interesting to get, and then for 2 movies, you're who's Sirius Black?
Yeah, and that's why you can't mention it, because it does, in the context of the movie, it does not matter.
It doesn't matter, yeah. It's, I think, well, also because I think, do people think that the Harry Potter books, because I know, the whole deal with Percy Jackson with the books and the movies, that was it was a bad time. They made 2 movies without consulting the author, and now they're going back to making a series. Was Harry Potter pretty faithful to its? I assume it had to be, given the popularity, and it was making it while the books were being written. I know there's details left out.
I'm gonna say maybe because there's some details that they just changed, Dudley. With the kid.
Dudley Dursley.
Yeah. What a lame.
I've
Dudley
never
in the books. He has blonde hair.
Yeah.
Petunia has blonde hair.
Yeah.
Not what they do here.
Yeah, because it's sort of this is how different Harry is from his family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just was oh, that's a small detail that I am just curious. Why didn't you do that? It says it right there in the books.
It's because that is an interesting thing, and then because there's that, and it's a small detail, But then it did just fine. It's sort of a thing where you're asking like it wouldn't have changed too much, but why didn't you do it?
Yeah, it's just like
I'm not upset, but
I'm not upset, but you changed it, and now I've noticed, and I'm just why?
The people who played the Dursleys were just such divas; they refused to wear wigs.
I assume
that's probably what it was. Yeah. So that's our token talking about books for this one, since we already heard your coffee table.
Oh my
book.
gosh, you totally got me. I was like, why are we talking about this? Whoa, you're really good at this, Jacob.
We did just walk ourselves into talking about books. I forget what you said your coffee table book was last time I talked with you.
It was like one of them was like train layouts.
Train layouts. That's right.
And
there was another
was like brackets. And like the story of how that team won.
Got it. That's right. Okay. Yeah, that fits. That's a good. So that's where we're just gonna put those books on top again. You've put yourself in the stack twice.
I got put 2 new books on there just real quick.
You want to put two new books?
2 like genuine books. One of them I'm reading now. One I'm about to read. One of them is called Stu Gotz's personal record book. He's a radio personality. I love the show that he's on, and he like talks about during the show, oh, that person didn't deserve to win that championship. In my personal record book, they still don't have any rings.
Oh.
Or like this person, like that game was like the semifinal, but it was better than the final. So we're just going to say that was the final now.
Interesting.
And it's kind of comedy, but this is like his like very serious bit.
So this is sports fanfic.
It's like sports fanfic comedy.
That's really crazy.
And then the other one is this podcast I like called Lateral with Tom Scott.
Yes, you told me.
He's got a book now that's a bunch of questions that you can like do yourself. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking forward to buying that and going through that one. I think that'll be a fun exercise.
That's cool. That's really fun. So there's 4 books that are attributed to Andrew Mister in this stack.
I'm filling this stack.
Is this show a competition to you?
Everything.
I'm gonna make this.
I'm going to win, my friend, the comedian.
You're actually like, I'm just gonna make this tower topple before Jacob can be interviewed himself on the show. I just need that to happen before anything else happens.
The visual of you like sitting in the chair you're sitting in, and then running over to me to answer the question, and then running back is really good.
That would before we get into resuming where we were last you left off, I've had an idea or a thought. It's not really my idea, but I've thought of it ever since. I think it's on the Inside Outtakes, where Bo does a bit where he's like a podcast of 2 like douchey guys, and he's both of them.
Yeah.
And it was really well timed and like edited and cut everything. But I've thought like, how interesting would it be to attempt to play 2 characters in a podcast, but still talk to yourself in a way?
Think about like Family Guy.
Yeah, I mean,
where Seth MacFarlane
that's
does
basically all he does.
Scenes where
I've thought about that, and when Justin Roiland was still doing like the voices on Rick and Morty, like talking to yourself, and not even like trying to do characters. Just if I played this guy, and then I was this guy over here, like I would be.
Who was that?
That's my guy.
Who said that?
That was Jacob 2.
Really?
J2. No, but I thought that would be an interesting idea for like the longest time. I think during I think I had like. I'm not going to say I came up with this before Bo. I just had the idea during quarantine.
You came up with it before.
Yeah, I beat him to it. I just meant during quarantine I was bored and I was like, this could be an interesting idea, and I didn't do it. And then Bo did it, and I was like, I thought about this.
I mean, Jacob, look, you said it, and it's on the internet.
It's
true.
I did it before Bo Burnham.
Yep.
Honestly,
it's true.
I've given him all his ideas.
Yep.
Even all the problematic ones, they're all attributed to me. Everything he's ever said.
Jacob, this is on the internet.
I know. You're looking at me like seriously worried.
You just said you did a bunch of problematic things on the internet.
Oh no!
Canceled.
So Bo.
Canceled.
So Bo.
Canceled.
So Bo did.
Canceled. You're not going to get to talk over me.
So Bo did, and I gave him all those ideas. So yeah, that's an idea that I've had, and I don't remember what you said that made me think of that.
You doing the podcast where you interview yourself?
Oh, where I run back and forth. Yeah, I've thought about that, or maybe like
trip on the floor.
Yeah, just the constant. Excuse me.
Ow.
Maybe I do a quick bit because I've thought about maybe getting like Owen to sit in my chair for that if I ever were to if I were to ever be a guest on the show. But yeah, there's some ideas there. Anyway, that was us explaining how you're trying to win the show. You're trying to win My Friends the Comedians. Mm-hmm. My Friends the Comedians sounds like a comedy game show.
It does.
Welcome to My Friends the Comedians. First up to compete here is Andrew Mister and Louis C.K.
Whoa, okay.
You get to fight him.
Are we fighting to be friends or comedians?
They're My Friends the Comedians. You're fighting to be my friend and a comedian. It's either going to be you or Louis C.K. I'll take you. You couldn't. Okay. I'd like to forfeit his.
Once again, this is on the internet.
Why is that the first name that came to mind?
you
Well,
just-
I didn't want to say John Mulaney. That felt easy with you and I, so I just wanted to say
Yeah.
someone else. And Louis C.K. is what
Yeah.
came up.
Yeah, it just was like you picked someone who is problematic.
So it'll be nice if you beat him. You won't feel bad about beating him up. You'd feel bad about beating like John Mulaney up. Although it would be kind of funny.
I mean, I feel bad about beating anyone up,
yeah, you feel bad about beating anyone.
but Louis C.K. kind of deserves it.
He could get it. He could.
I think. I don't
He
know.
could. He
I
could
should
get a punch. He couldn't get it. Like.
We should get away from this topic.
All right. So
Let's just turn left.
last we left on my friends the comedians an episode with Andrew Mister, which has yet to be titled because I haven't released it when we're recording right now. We talked about Ridiculum going into this was 2020, the second semester of 2020, and COVID has hit.
Yes.
And what was like?
Yes.
How was that like? What was that like?
Yeah. So I remember being on the patio of Old Sear and getting the email that said, "You are going home now."
Wow, that's
And
terrifying.
I was with Ridiculum. We were playing Foursquare on that old patio because the patio had these big stone squares on it that we could like mark out and be like, this is a Foursquare grid. And we were doing that because we were just hanging out outside.
You were playing the ball game Foursquare.
Yes.
Not the improv game Foursquare.
No, the ball game Foursquare because we just wanted to be outside and just being told everyone leaves now.
Terrifying.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I had a sense of this virus for like a month or two solely because the person I was dating at the time, her dad was a journalist and he worked for Al Jazeera. And so he did a lot of like international writing, was tuned into that. And so he had like, I don't know if he had done reporting or if just some of his friends at Al Jazeera had been doing reporting on the virus in China. And so he kind of had a sense of what this thing was and was saying to us, hey, pay attention. This is not just, oh, people are getting sick somewhere. Like, this thing seems different.
Yeah.
And so when it came, there was kind of his voice in the back of my head, like, whoa, he was right on the money with this.
I told you.
Yeah. So we go home, and we are playing Jackbox games over Zoom. That's, like, our way to socialize, to hang out, and to, like, try to do improv.
To not lose it.
To not lose it and feel connected, because 2 weeks very clearly became indefinitely.
Yeah.
And so we go through the summer, and things are, we have a better understanding of the virus, and people feel good enough to come back to campus. And so we come back to campus, and Ridiculum is like, how are we going to function? You have to wear masks all the time. The school's made it pretty clear that they don't want organized activities really happening, especially indoors. And so we were like, well, then let's just not be organized and let's not do it indoors.
Let's disband the club and do it illegally.
Yeah.
A little bit.
And I don't remember who said it, but I remember sitting by the Oreo on the Ellipse, the five of us having our first exec meeting.
Who are these five?
Me, Claire Roberts, Jay Dolan, Becca Fink, Patrick Lyons.
Yes.
And we are trying to figure out what to do, and someone, I wish I could tell you who.
I would love it if this group of five all thought it was them though. It was
Yeah,
like, but it was me.
I'll
take
credit.
You can
for
take
it.
credit when I have the rest of them on again.
Yeah.
Then they could say that too.
But I was like, I'll pretend it was me. Like, someone looked at the Sack Garage, which was just kind of in the distance, and was like, that could work.
Yeah.
And so we had like unorganized meetings where we'd go up to the top of the Sack Garage with our Villanova folding chairs that the school had given us, and we would do improv up there. And I remember, this is one of the craziest details, because this wasn't really a big deal when you were here. Spotted lanternflies.
Yes.
These invasive species. These things would be everywhere in the fall.
Yeah.
There were so many of them on the top of the Sack Garage. And if we were up there during the day, you would spend half of practice stomping on those things.
Would they just, was it the universities told us to kill this invasive species, or was it legitimately like prohibiting you to do improv, like they were bugging you the whole time?
Haha, bugging.
Bugging.
So it was more of the university told us, and like the state of Pennsylvania told us, like, kill these things. These are invasive.
Yeah.
The only way to do it is kill them. And like, what a great thing to do to tell like 18 to 22-year-old people like step on that thing. Because there is never a more determined group than like drunk college students who will see them and be like, I have to get them.
It's a mission we must complete.
So we're doing improv on the top of the Sac Garage twice a week. And I'd love to share with you a quote that I wrote in Ridicu-Lore. This is our like, we wrote this like document that transcribes kind of what happened every year so that people in the future who are big lore fanatics like Jacob, like
me,
myself, can like get a sense of what the club was like, who these people are and characters to try to like help the club live on. And in writing about these practices, I said, quote, I need you to understand the visual of 8 to 10 people at the top of a parking garage from 6 to 8 p.m. at night during a global pandemic without a care in the world. That feels like the definition of white privilege.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Because we just like, and it was great. It was fun because it was a group of people that had been connected for a year or two who had built those bonds, and now we're just kind of experimenting.
Well, yeah, it's also, and not to make this, because I'm sure it didn't feel so dramatic other than, you know, the overarching everything, but like it's to, as an improviser, to survive, you must keep doing it.
Yeah.
Or you will like, I mean, you know, coming back for like the alum show, it's like you guys have like a practice before you have to do a show, but it's, if you haven't done it in a little bit, even if you still have that ability, it's like intimidating because you haven't done it in a while and you fear that you might do it wrong. Even just the summer that separates each year.
Every summer you come back and that first like few practices you're like, I wonder how this is going to go.
Yeah, are we even able to do this anymore?
And especially with COVID, with both a longer break and a less socialized break because no one was really interacting with even just like your friends from home. You're like, do we still have the ability to do this?
Yeah.
And so what was great about this was because there was no immediate shows and no like trying to teach people improv, we were doing the things we had always done, but we wanted to do them differently. As I imagine you, as having been in Ridiculum for 4 years, it doesn't, no year feels the same. You're trying to like update things and do it differently.
Well, and because you mentioned this too, and I'm sure you're probably about to talk about it, so not to step on your toes, but like Pat had mentioned when I talked to him about it, that like it was nice because you said no shows to plan, no one knew to teach, and so the freedom that y'all felt is something I don't think Ridiculum. And a Ridiculum exec will never get to feel that again, hopefully. I hope nothing as bad as the pandemic happens again where that kind of situation set up. But it's unique. It's like I told Pat, it was like you guys were an actual like improv troupe, like in New York or something. You're the same group. You get to do stuff together and experiment without worrying about things.
Yeah, and to me, it was more just the like, it wasn't that first month of like, we have to teach this person improv and figure out if they're any good.
Yeah.
It was like, we all know we can do this. We entered with that confidence that we could do it. So we were just trying it. And so we'd be up on the garage twice a week, and you'll get a kick out of this. It's like 7 p.m. one night, up on the garage. The sun has set. Someone looks over down to like the half ramp that's going down to the next level, and there's this white Jeep parked up there, and there's really not a lot of cars on the top of the Sac Garage. We're like, that's
pretty.
weird.
It's pretty bare.
Like, yeah, that's weird. Interesting. Anyways, we go back to practice. Someone like a few minutes later is like looking over at it, and they're like, there's like something in there, like orange and glowing. And so now we're all taking a look over the edge, and it looks like there is a candle in that car. And we're like, that's so weird. Anyways,
let's go do improv.
We just finish improv, and we like forget about it. The next week, we're up there around 7 p.m. Someone looks over, and it's back.
So incredibly interesting. I've heard this story a few times from y'all, and every time I hear it, I try to like, I'm sure y'all did too. I try to come up with like, what's the story? What was happening?
Because that was what we were experiencing, because every Wednesday around 7 p.m. this car would show up. No one would ever see it pull up.
It was just there.
It was just there. It just suddenly appeared. And like maybe one of us should have had the foresight with our curiosity to just stand and look. But it was like maybe a month or two consistently of this car every 7 p.m. being there, a candle inside. We have no idea if people were like smoking, people were just hanging out, people were doing the thing. Like no clue.
Set the scene with a candle.
Well, and that was the thing. We're like, what are you doing with a candle? scandal.
Yeah,
We're like,
can
are
you-
they listening
can
to
you-
us? Like, are we being spied on? Is that the government?
Can you and I take a break real quick from the show? I want you and I to pitch what you think. What was one of the ideas that you had? Like, I'm sure your brain was running wild with like, this could be what they're doing. Like, tell me the story. What are they there
So
for?
my theory was it was some couple on campus who, because of COVID rules, like, was struggling to be able to like hang out and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was like date night.
Yeah.
They would just go sit in the car and hang out for an hour and like maybe eat and like smoke something.
Set the scene in the car.
Yeah, I mean, just like
the sound of a bunch of
recline back.
college kids doing improv is a perfect
That's my thing.
soundtrack to
There
have
was-
sex to.
They could hear us.
Yeah, I was
There's
going to
no
say,
way
it's
they
not very,
couldn't.
yeah, which is, I would love to one day have one of those people on my podcast and just say, what was COVID like first few months of that semester like? And you're like,
Yeah.
this weird improv troupe would be doing stuff while we were just having a date night.
Yeah, every 7 p.m., those people would look down at us and
Yeah.
then walk away.
And we would hear them go, what is that candle doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the truth is, we could have walked up to them.
Yeah.
Like, there was a very easy way to solve this. We never did.
I like the mystery of it.
Yeah.
Well, because I think that's fun to think, because as much as you and Pat and Beck, like all the people that are on this garage doing this during that year, if you had got a conclusion to the story, you'd probably still be talking about it, but it wouldn't be as fun to talk about as it is right now.
Because we got then a huge lead because, like, weeks later, Claire was walking through campus outside Mendel and saw the Jeep. It was the same Jeep. It had
somewhere else.
Ohio tags.
It wasn't where.
Yes.
Oh.
It was in a new spot during the day. It was parked outside Mendel,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the exact Jeep. Because we had taken a picture. We, like, had the license plate enough of it that we knew what it was,
Mm-hmm.
and she found it.
Wow.
And we were like, oh, this is, like,
Everyone-
this is someone. This is
Uh-huh.
very much someone who, like, is on campus, but we never figured out who it was.
I love that you didn't. It's
Yeah.
when I've been told this story, I think, man, I want a white Jeep story. That is the kind, especially like during COVID too. That's a good story on its own. Then you're like, oh, also this was during the worst time in ever.
Yeah, like I'm sure they were just trying to seek refuge too.
Yeah.
Like they were just trying to find normalcy in the most unnormal time. And we're
somehow
being, like,
those paths are
just
crossed.
stared at
Yeah.
by like 10 kids at the top of a parking garage, just being like, "What are they doing?
What are they doing? This is so weird. Why would they be parked at a parking garage?
Yeah.
So, what does a little later, because, restrictions do not lift, but restrictions lift enough at some point for you guys to do shows in some capacity.
Yes.
What comes along? What's the first thing you guys get to actually do?
So people are very clearly bored on campus,
Mm-hmm.
and Kat is trying to entertain them. I had been hosting Quizzo, and we had kept it going, and during good weather, we would go outside on the Oreo.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my friends, Joe,
Mm-hmm.
was had a decently high position in Cat that he was planning events. And so I went to him and I said, could Ridiculum do a show like Quizzo's doing on the Oreo for an hour to entertain people in this just boring time?
Mm-hmm.
And so we did. We tried to. We tried to do it the fall semester, and we could not get it done. There was weather issues, there was planning issues and scheduling. It just never worked out. It would just get like too cold. And the running bit we had about it was because the show was called Comedic Occurrences via Improvised Demonstration, which is an acronym for COVID. And
Yeah.
we're like, our show is getting canceled because it's called COVID.
which isn't a zero chance. Like they might have been like, I don't want a show called COVID on our university. Who
Yeah.
knows?
They could have just told us to change it.
Yeah, I was gonna say they do like to keep it vague if they don't want stuff happening. I'm sure, especially during that time, they're like, no, don't do that.
But we did get a stand-up show that semester.
Mhm.
And this was the first time that stand-up had its own show, like standalone show on campus.
Right, because the first time y'all did something,
It was it was tacked onto the front end.
It was
of
Ultimate Crossover?
Ultimate Crossover. Yeah. It was to open the show. And so it was now really a good chance to see what's the appetite for stand-up on this campus. And a lot of people showed up, which was... It made me be like, yeah, because we're so funny and we're so cool. And I think it was just because people were so
this is
bored.
something to do. At
This
the
is
very least,
something-
I'll go heckle them for a little bit.
Exactly. If they're bad, I'll enjoy how bad they are.
Yeah, maybe because I can picture what that feeling of like I need to do something was like me being in high school, because high school was rather boring, especially that fall and stuff. In college, I can't imagine. It's like you're grasping for anything of like finally something fun or something like at the very least, like, watchable.
Yeah. And so that show happens, and it was fun to see everyone starting to actually perform, but I think it really demonstrated to me how much work we had to do as a stand-up club, because like we were funny, but we were funny to us, and people had varying degrees of success to the audience, but it like almost showed me like we need to get a lot more experience, but there is no way to really do that at Villanova, and it wasn't really possible right now to go off of campus and do it because of like there were no comedy clubs that were doing shows right now. Like people were doing stand up in the park at the time. And so it was this like we need to do more but we can't right now. So stand up was happening, but there wasn't like a way for us to grow at the moment, or even for me to grow until much later. And we'll come back to junior year, but I'll jump ahead, where I started doing shows like in New York, trying to find either like open mics or new talent shows, bringer shows, where I could start performing in front of people and like really get the sense of, here's someone who's never met me before. How is this coming across? And it really showed me I had a lot of work to do.
Dude,
I was not as funny as I thought I was.
I never will. I'm also glad that like stand-up isn't the passion that I thought it would be freshman year. I'm very much an improv guy. I enjoy doing stand-up, but I'm not doing it after this last show I have. Like, the idea of going to anywhere but a Villanova stand-up show, for me, sounds personally terrifying. I'll go do improv wherever. I don't care. But, yeah, stand-up and open mic sounds like it would be like, it would really, like, check you and be like, this is, you need a lot. You need to do a lot.
Yeah. So I'll just go down the stand-up path.
Yeah, go down the stand-up path
and then
real
we
quick.
can just put stand-up away forever.
Yeah, sure thing.
So, like, I started doing those shows the following year. Every once in a while I'd go up to New York, or I'd try to go into, like, Philly and do a show. And I was fine. I mean, there were people who were just phenomenal, who were really good at this. And not just the, like, people who've been doing it for a while, but you'd have, like, younger talent who just, like, they were damn funny. I took a stand-up class, and there's one comedian. Her name's Rosie Catherine. She was so funny. And now she, like, performs a lot in New York. She travels a little bit with a comedian named Troy Bond.
Yes, Troy Bond.
Yeah, she will open for him sometimes around the country. So, like, she's out there doing her thing because she really committed to it. And there's a part of me that's always been a little jealous because I've been like, maybe I should have, like, committed harder the way she did. But it just wasn't possible for me at Villanova at the time.
Yeah.
But so I continued doing stand-up for a bit. And then it was, like, 2 years ago, I just, like, lost the, like, manic need to do it. That like itch for it faded. And I think some of it was I didn't really like what stand-up was becoming. There was a lot more emphasis on crowd work, but like in a way that felt mean to the audience, because it would be like, oh, like, what do you do?
I work at a power plant.
Oh, power plant, you dumb idiot. Everyone laugh at him. He's dumb, idiot power plant. And I just like, that's at least what it felt like to me. And I didn't want to do that kind of comedy. And so it was that. And then there was just a lot of people who were like, oh, you can't say things anymore. I'm going to go like be like homophobic on purpose because that's funny to me, or I'm going to be like anti-Semitic to like try to make a laugh. And it just was uncomfortable to me to hear people saying these things and thinking they were funny. And
so does it kind of taint the performance part for you?
It just was like the path to get to being the type of comedian I wanted to be in stand-up required a lot of work for me that I wanted to put in, but I would then go to like show it off, and it would really kind of take the shine off of it to me and make me be like, I don't really want to put in all this work and then have to surround myself with these kind of people because it's going to be years of this. And it just made me uncomfortable enough that I was just like, I don't want to be around people who think these things because it just doesn't feel right to me, and no one's going to stand up to them. And I don't have the skills to get on stage and be like, this is why that person's wrong, and like have a go at them. And at the same time, I was like, that also feels wrong of me because I'm sitting here judging people and being like, I don't like when people are like, you dumb idiot, you. And then me getting up there and doing that exact thing because I just disagree with them. And I was just like, this does not feel like the forum to have those kind of conversations. All of that coupled with a more serious revelation of I had not found my comedic voice. I was still trying to be the comedians I looked up to and not my own version of a comedian. And so I was like, I just need to put this down and walk away from it for a little bit. And so then when I came back and did stand up at the alumni show when we were last here, what was so great about it to me was that I finally found, like, in having come back to it after like a year and a half with more experience, more writing experience, more comedy experience, I knew what my voice was a little more. I much more preferred storytelling. And so that itch started to come back. And I haven't done anything about it yet, but there is that part of me that's like, maybe it's time to go back and just give it another try.
Just try again.
Because, like, I still do kind of like the idea of being a stand-up comedian, although I'm very happy with being a writer and getting to just spend time.
Yeah, I was gonna say we'll get back to because we talk about stand-up. We'll get back to improv in a minute, but you've touched on one of the questions that I had prepared of like. And you're right, and I've noticed it. Your involvement with comedy in general has shifted, I think, since you left Villanova. When you left Villanova, it might have been in your head, you might have been like kind of drifting away from the stand-up. But in my head, it was like, this guy kind of wants to go into stand-up and like touching on comedy writing too, and he likes improv. But like it's shifted in your involvement because you like as a job write like for YouTube and like comedy writing has become more. Have you noticed that like your comedic tendencies, different jokes or punches that you go for, or just in general how you feel about comedy has shifted with the fact that your involvement has shifted a little bit?
Yeah. And some of that is also what I write for. So as we're kind of mentioning things, hey, this is going to be scattershot of like everything I do because I do far too much. So the YouTube channel I write for is geared more towards like tweenage girls is like just like the plurality of the demo. The biggest
plurality.
Thank you. So that's who we try to write for the most. That is not my sense of humor.
I was going to say...
I am not Gen Alpha. I don't really have a Gen Alpha sense of humor. So it's been a challenge to me to write jokes that are either more mature or dated and try to find a way to bring that back. And what has been so great for me is it's allowed me to work more on my character work. Because there's certain characters that I just understand better and how to be funny with them. So there's one character who has like a very himbo energy to him. And I love writing his stuff because I know how to do that like very dumb, like almost like pun related, like he doesn't quite get what's happening.
Yeah.
And so
that feels not, this wasn't entirely, but like I could see you, and I think you have, like you've played a few of those characters in like an improv scene.
Yeah.
Like that connects to an easier character realm that you can touch on that is a little wider to grasp.
It feels more of a character that I can play because I can relate to. Whereas like there's a character who's like a very like suave lone wolf but has a little bit of sensitivity to him for this one character. And it's like I don't know how to write that. Writing that character is very hard for me because I was not the like suave lone wolf with a sensitive side. And so that's been harder, and especially how to write him to be funny.
Yeah.
But it's given me the opportunity to try. And what I like about this job and what I hope to do over the years I work there is to be able to learn those voices and how to write them, because the diversity of the cast of like their personalities is good. And we're growing the cast so that they don't all feel the same, so that I can like be like this character who she's like a little like, I don't want to say ditzy, but like she's not as competitive as everyone else. She just really likes her things, and it's more just like life is fun for her. Like trying to figure out how to use her voice, and not just how to make her funny, but how to put her with the like suave lone wolf and the himbo and make them all sit in a room together and like talk and be funny and interesting and make sense. And so that exercise to me became a lot more interesting than trying to like dig into my past and be like, what's something funny that I can tell people about? Because the personal nature of stand-up can be hard because you're kind of pouring out your guts. And if people don't react to it the way you wanted them to, in this case, laughing, a lot of that can feel very personal. And for me, I was like, I don't think I can mentally handle that interaction. Whereas with writing, I can have that back and forth. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's about me. It feels like a little something that I might know, or a person like that, and I'm writing with someone I know in mind.
That's very interesting, because I don't remember exactly what the phrasing was, and I don't know if you've listened to Kevin's episode, but Kevin mentions why he's sticking with stand-up for the opposite reason of like, I I forget exactly what he says, so I'll paraphrase, and this isn't exactly his words, but like I get like nervous or like scared when I have to go portray or write a character or something. If it's me, I'm incredibly comfortable, and it's not the thing of like, oh, I'm just better like being honest on stage, but I think his thoughts were just like, I just feel comfortable and I can write for myself, and it sounds like opposite reason of like I feel more comfortable with this character, and I can reach people with like characters and stuff.
Because, and I will say, I think one of the differences between me and Kevin is Kevin has a great wit. He's good at just finding the immediate funny. I think one of the things I'm better at is seeing the larger story of things, and why storytelling as my stand-up platform or my stand-up voice made so much sense for me, because I like the story with like the message at the end, and it ties with my script writing, and even in working for this YouTube channel, like what is the overall story where I leave you with something. And I wanted my comedy not to just be I made you laugh, it's I made you think about something.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do that when you're writing for the audience I'm writing for. They don't much care for that. And, you know, there are ways to subtly lay it in there, but you're never going to write too seriously. But it gives me the ability to write every day so that then when I log off, I can write personal things that then do that. And I feel like I'm getting the actual practice I need in the way that, like, living at home with my parents in the Maryland suburbs of D.C., there's no stand-up scene there. I can't be practicing stand-up enough to make it work and get better. So some of it, I think the career shift, to your original question, is opportunity. What is around me? I don't have my friends around to do improv or to film sketches. I don't have the ability to go do stand-up right now, but I have my laptop and I can write, and now I have a job where I can write. So writing is going to be my central focus right now.
Yeah.
But when I moved to New York with Siobhan, that may suddenly make stand-up or improv or some of those other things more feasible, and I may try to get back into them.
Yeah, I think I it's fun to see, because at least at the moment, but again, things could happen, and this might be like hubris of me saying, I feel that at the moment I'm rather static, not static in a bad way, but like where I am of like, I know I like improv. I'll do stand-up till I'm out of the club. I know I want to keep doing improv when I'm out of college. But seeing like a change happen with you, and not even like this is change, this is the change forever. You're sort of just like allowing to be shifted by what, like you said, it's opportunity, and it's like, well, if I change again, that's fine. I think as long as it's around comedy too, that's what's important to you.
It's all about adapting to your environment. It's why I'm so happy you do this show, and like why, like I was like, can I come back on the show?
Can I come back?
It's like, you have access to all these amazing facilities. You should get. See, I am so burpy. I'm sorry, audience.
It's a real bread and seltzer from John Mulaney.
Yeah, sorry about that. I've clearly gotten old. I'm so happy that you have all this stuff, and I want you to use it while you can, because not to give you a panic attack.
Oh,
but
yeah.
In a few months,
It's gonna be gone.
Like, you aren't gonna have this setup.
Yeah,
but you'll have a job. You'll start making money. You can begin to reconstruct this, and you'll hopefully have people around you wherever you end up that you can start doing this again. But that first like month where you realize I don't have Ridiculum, I don't have the WXVU studio, is a little scary.
I think, and I could be wrong, but I fear that it's going to hit me when the next school year comes around, because I'm like Pavloved and like, well, I always have this 3 months where I'm alone, and it's good for me. And then after that 3 months, I'm gonna go, where are my comedians?
Yeah,
I don't know where they are.
And it was so funny because when I took my extra semester and stayed for that like 5th year, 9th semester, I came back, and December comes and I realize I'm done, and everyone goes back in January, but it didn't really hit me until the following semester where I was like, oh, I am not coming back.
I'm not. Yeah, this isn't, because that following semester, like, you were around.
I was around.
Still.
Siobhan was there, so I was visiting her a ton.
Yeah,
and I was
so that
around.
when that hits, it's gonna be like, oh,
yeah,
like, okay, I'm actually gone.
But like, the good news is you have a lot of friends out in the world who are both interested in doing comedy, but also with you. I'm pointing at me right now,
and I'm pointing at you right now.
So it's like the thing that I, am hopeful for you about your comedy journey. I'm now interviewing Jacob.
This is me.
Is like, you have people who are a step ahead of you who are like, come on, get out of college and just start doing this with me. I want to do this
for the past 3 years. It's felt like that since like the first person left. Even though they're not even as involved, but even like seeing the first people leave, like seeing Jay and Becca leave, it's like, you guys doing stuff out there? Which they're not as much as some other people. But still, it's like give me 1 second. I just need to finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Let's from your 9th semester. Let's rewind back. If we're back into junior year, let's go improv now. Let's talk about. So you do get this COVID show off the ground, but it's not COVID.
Yeah. So it eventually is called Villanova Actors Creating Comedic Improvised Nighttime Entertainment.
Nice,
something like that.
Good job.
It's an acronym for vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
That show just like immediately gets approved and is happening.
The university is like, they figured out our puzzle.
Yeah, and we're like, okay, so we just needed the vaccine. And so
guys, don't worry, we got the vaccine.
Yeah, so like shout out Villanova for not being anti-vax. They absolutely understood it here. That would have been so effing funny if we had somehow made an acronym that was anti-vax and tried that.
And they were like, yeah, that's what we want. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So that show is deep in May.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the memories I really loved about that, and somewhat started a tradition, was before the show, we had one senior who was graduating, Tim Kroll, and we had this $500 club budget that we had not touched because what were we going to do with it? And we were like, well, we have this money.
And you have to spend it.
We have to spend it.
Because it's going to go away or they'll think you can't use it.
Yeah. So we go to the King of Prussia Mall and we buy $500 of just random shit.
So much money.
I mean, just
for one person.
Everything. So he's like from Minnesota, so we got him like a Twins hat, but we also got him like a puzzle and like.
I was gonna say, was this a multitude of items or like a few expensive things?
A multitude of items,
yeah.
And then Patrick Lyons, I was talking with him the other day. He reminded me of my favorite thing in there. We got him a piñata, and then we bought those like little plastic canisters of mini M&Ms. We bought a ton of them, and we filled the piñata
with M&Ms,
with just loose mini M&Ms, and handed all of it to him when he came off the stage.
My God.
And we're like, "This is yours now. This is $500 of just anything.
Oh my God,
and this is yours now."
That's amazing. That sounds like a very, like, it sucks you guys couldn't do shows, but it's like, that's a fun opportunity to be like, we get to spend $500 in one day.
And we got to hang out at the mall. It was like because like doing pre-show stuff was harder. So we did all that at the mall. Memories are coming back to me now. This is crazy. We go to the As Seen on TV store, and Jay gets these things called piggy poppers. They are molds that look like pigs. And you can make pigs in a blanket with them. You put in the dough and then put like the hot dog in and then like throw it in the oven to like cook the dough.
Oh.
And Jay brings these to a dinner, pre-show dinner we did. I think it was maybe the night before, but a pre-show dinner. He brings them. He grabs one off the top of the plate and he's like, "I'm so ready for this." He takes a bite of it. He goes, "Oh, this is raw." And we look at it and it's like oozing like the batter still. It did not cook. The rest were fine, but for whatever reason he grabbed the one that was like, you know when like a pancake first goes on the griddle, just that
and like
inside.
maybe a cold sausage.
Yeah, and it was like, what is this?
That's so gross.
Yeah. But you also, the crazy detail that does not matter, but I'll share anyways. There must have been like a big storm or like hurricane that had come through, because I remember going to shop for ingredients for like the potluck dinner we were doing, which is why I brought the piggy poppers. And the power was out at the Giant. And all the freezers were like or open air like fridges were like covered with plastic wrap. I have no idea how this memory was awoken in me. Not funny, not interesting, but just really bizarre to walk around a Giant where like half the lights are off.
That sounds terrifying.
And like everything's covered. And I was like, I'd die here today. It wasn't the pandemic that would got me, though it surely will try to. It's gonna be getting stabbed in like a
half-lit Giant. And half-lit Giant.
Because like everyone's looting because half the power's out.
So if you go in the dark areas, no one will see you.
Yeah.
Just don't go in the light area.
So I'm safe in there.
Safe in there.
Yeah, if you're stuck in a place and half of it's light, half of it's dark, go to the dark area.
Go to the dark area.
That's where all the safety is.
A half-lit Giant sounds like, have you on your TikTok feed, you know, like when people do like, your month is the place that you're in.
Yeah, and it's with liminal spaces.
It's a liminal space, yeah. That sounds like a bad liminal space. There's like the lights are just kind of off, and your survival chance is like 98.
I know the picture's not on my phone, but I had a picture of it at one point. Perhaps after the episode, I will dig through texts from my mom and see if I still have it when I texted it to her.
Texted like a liminal space tour, or that this
giant
oh
of
this
like how
liminal space.
creepy. Because I took a picture of it because I was like, if I die here, someone needs to know I was here.
That's like what a liminal space is, right? If people weren't there, that's sort of what a liminal space is.
Yeah, but it was kind of empty.
It was kind of
so
it
was in COVID,
Yeah.
and it was just like a weird time during the day. So it was like a few improv members, and that was it.
Oh man.
Yeah, and then probably Marty, the like anti-theft robot, just like rolling around because of course that still had electricity.
That's
somehow.
still there. Yeah, Marty actually is just his own thing.
Yeah,
he's his own being. So you so I forget what we were talking about. How'd the show go?
It went well. It was bizarre.
I'm sure it was crazy.
We were
yeah,
on the Oreo.
This was outside again.
Outside, so projecting was really hard, and so we were doing the show with handheld microphones, and that were like going in and out too.
Oh yeah.
So it provided a lot of challenges for us, but I thought overall the show went fine.
And you guys did like short form and then ended with like or you did all long form?
We did like 20 minutes of short form, and then like a 40-minute town.
We did a similar thing.
Town.
Oh my God, Beantown.
Yeah, because I had to fart or I had to shit my pants the entire time.
Oh my gosh.
I kept running through stages, and it created one of my favorite jokes from Frank. So my whole bit was that like I had a lot of beans and like I was gonna poop.
That was your character the whole time.
Yeah, the whole time. And so I would do this thing where I would just like run through scenes and be like, I'm looking for the bathroom. And so there was one scene in like what was Frank's character's house, and I ran through what his like front door was, and Frank looks around and goes, I must have left the door open. And it was such a better joke than my dumb poop joke.
But it was
because it showed the awareness of like how him immediately thinking, how could this have happened? How can I comment on it to make it feel normal? It was so funny and clever.
I think Frank is an expert at if you do something, and not to say that you did something wrong. Your character did something, and so it's like
Jay both have this.
Yeah, he and Jay have this ability of in a way that seems like it's almost elevating you, even though that doesn't. It's not what it needs to do.
Because it's not making fun of you for like being like you broke the rule. It's like I'm gonna justify.
It is the perfect way to do improv in that scenario because they both recognize that it happened. Sometimes chuckling if it was so crazy, and that's good enough to disarm the audience on what just happened, and then justifying it. I would never hesitate to, in an improv scene with Frank or Jay, try to throw something stupid out there and just see what they do. Like once I got comfortable performing with these guys, I wouldn't like not in the show. I think I was too scared to do like messy shit in a show, but like in a practice, I would just say something crazy, and I would be like, all right, guys. What are you going to say?
What are you going to do?
How is this justified? And they would do it every time. And it's perfect.
This kind of ties with something I wanted to share with you about when you do improv today, and something I want you to think about, because I've noticed this in terms of writing, and something I think that they do a good job that helps with these characters. And I'll try to tie this in as best as I can. I think one of the mistakes we've made in Ridiculum with characters is we try to come up with wacky characters. And what makes a good character, is the voice and all that, but it's the motivation. What do they want in this scene? And I think Jay and Frank are very good at identifying what someone wants and when it's a little weird. And that's what it is that has always worked for them. And I'm trying to come up with a better example than the Doors one, because that was more of a just like a situational, they know spatially the thing. But oftentimes their jokes are because they like this character that they've ideated has this one specific goal in mind. And I'd love to hear from you like after practice today to think about like when you do a character game, like not just like what is your character, but like what do they want? And so the example I would give to you is I've been thinking about this would be a really funny party quirks thing, where one of the quirks, the character, is the next door neighbor who just wants you to turn the music down.
Oh, that's really good.
And first of all, it creates a really fun character that can go in and out of the scene. It gives movements and dynamics, but it gives what they are and their quirk. It's not just like, I'm growing a third arm, because the quirk that, or how you exemplify, is not that you're growing a third arm, it's that you're trying to hide the third arm, right? Like when we do those, you're trying to like react to like, well, now that I have it, what am I doing about it?
And especially in a game like Party Quirks 2, where you really have to hold your Chekhov's gun. You have to, like, for the pacing of it, you're not trying to win Party Quirks. Like, if you are the neighbor and maybe you're the first one to come in, you got to really let it breathe. You got to let it,
you just got to be like,
settle.
hey, I'm sorry, like, I just like don't want to, interrupt or anything, but like,
I don't even want to say what it is. Just
like,
can you not
do it? You know what I like, and then walk out.
And then walk out, and that's all they get.
Yeah. And then like come back in later with more people and get more into it and like have that ability then like when people recognize what everyone's motivation are, you're not trying to stay, you just want to turn it down and leave. Now the people at the party can pull you in and like now be like, oh, come on and stay, and they like bring you over to like the drinks, they bring you the food and like to like the music and be like, what song do you want next, right? And now that it's about motivation and not just like this silly thing about me, it creates better conflict in the scene, and I think a better scene. And I think that's what Jay and Frank were always subtly never able to articulate, but like what made them good is they knew what their character wanted.
Absolutely.
I think about like in the long form show, this is probably the best example I can give of Jay, the like Taxi Jeremy scene where he was this guy and he was like trying to explain something, and all he wanted to do in this scene was just like get someone to agree with him. But Becca was in this taxi that kept pulling up and wanting to like take him away. He didn't want to do that, and so he'd be like, do another lap, and she'd drive around like the auditorium to like simplify that.
Yeah.
But like because he didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
His motivation was to do something with that character, and because of that it made him hyper aware of people trying to impede his goal and then point out the silly of don't stop me, let me do the thing I want to do.
I think that absolutely it's a because it's so tough, and it's not even like a well sometimes people do it wrong. It's like because there's a rule of like yes and in improv, and if you're ever breaking that in an intentional way, or if like if me, Jacob, the person, has motivations in the scene and I'm stopping stuff because of that, then that's not what needs to be done. But that rule I really enjoy, and you mentioned even with the Party Quirks thing, that's kind of encompassing. I really enjoy when we break shit in the right way. When we break rules, when we break games in a way that works and doesn't like fuck shit up.
And I think that the way you can break it, and this is something like I've personally discovered recently, and I'm really looking forward to the alumni show to try it, is that you can break things when you know what your character wants, because then the conflict and story of the scene is always in the forefront of your mind because you know you're working to that. And then as things are breaking, you can enjoy the breaks while also looking at what you really want and saying, I need to get there.
Yeah.
And all these things are the conflicts to help me the conflicts for me to overcome to get to where I want. And that journey then is what makes the scene enjoyable.
Yeah.
But it's taken me, 6-7 years to finally have some of these epiphanies.
Well, yeah.
Because that's how it works. You just have to keep doing it. And why, for me, improv, stand-up, writing, sketching, sketch comedy, like all those things, doing them all has finally given me the tools to do it, because I didn't get to study it in school. I didn't get to, go to improv, camp as a kid like Pat did.
It sounds fun, man. I would have loved to do that.
I never had any of those like formal training, and I'm learning it on my own. And when you get those aha moments, it's so exciting because you're like, it gives me energy to go again.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't recommend doing this the path I did where you go, I don't know anything and I'm just gonna try.
I'm gonna go try everything
and bounce around. But it certainly does allow you to learn and get better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's and also because like unless you're like the person who invented improv, you can't have these like epiphanies about improv in the first year you do it. Because if you do, then I don't think you're embracing it. Like,
right, which is a great segue to talk about my senior year, your freshman year, where it's now your first time. Because I'd be curious, what did that feel like for you? Where you're going, if you can put yourself in that position.
No, definitely. I mean, well, it wasn't. I'm happy to say I didn't walk in with hubris. I'm unhappy to say that I probably walked in trying to be on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, where I was like, I'm just going to try the littlest bit. Or like I don't know, like I mean not everyone, but like it's a common thing of like you come into college, you're a little nervous, you might lack confidence in yourself, and maybe that's why you joined a club so you could get friends. That was me. I was like, I don't know about this. I don't know about me, and so I just like joined a club. It was mostly just to make friends or like get people, because I was like, I probably won't do comedy or anything. No, but that first year, like getting taught it too, I mean, a number of my guests that have said, whether they're currently in the club at the moment or they were one of the people who taught me, have said like it's disarming and it's nice and comfortable once someone like gives you your first good note. And I think, I don't remember exactly what the first good note was, but I remember the first thing I did in a practice, I was Peter Parker and stuff kept sticking to my hands. People kept sticking to my hands. This was at a bus stop, I think. And it was a simple bit, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And my good note was like, that was fun, and that's good enough. Like it was like, that was fun, and it wasn't immediate, because I think an immediate negative response to something can really put someone on a different direction. And so that was essentially the experience. I kept getting either positive or constructively positive things, and that was enough.
Because that was being the senior and now like super exec at this point.
I was going to say
a lot.
I was going to say, how different is this from you? Because I was talking with Frank about this too, of like, you never were in a place where someone was doing the things. Like, you started this club with 4 other people, and you were always at top of this club. Not necessarily the best in the club, but I'm just saying, like, you were always doing things. So how did that feel different than...
And that's not actually, like, totally true. That, like, freshman year, I didn't have an exec position, so I wasn't really doing much. My sophomore year, I was then on the board and, was aspiring to try to do and help and grow this club. But, you learn the more you're up there how people respond, because you realize that these people are going to be your best friends. You don't want to just be like, you're bad.
Yeah.
And so I always, learned that it would be beneficial, especially with new people, to start with, here's something I enjoyed. Whether it's just like, this one joke made me laugh. Just something for them to hold on to. And this is even true with like writing now at my job, because I get revisions. It can be really upsetting sometimes when you go through revisions and it's just like critiques. And I appreciate one of them, the editors there, who will go in and be like, this joke made me laugh. I like how you wrote this section. Those little things you really cherish, because it makes you feel like you're doing good and you want to stick around. And so giving that good feedback, I think, is so important, not just because you're like, I want to make this person feel good, but it's like, if you want people to join your club and stay, they need to feel like they have a reason to. But, and I was more so than anyone else on the club, I really wanted to do comedy after the club. And so I was like, I need to get better. And the only way I can get better is if this club gets better, so that like the rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
And like I can learn. And so I would, like, more so than other people, give feedback and be like, this didn't work for me, but let me explain to you exactly why it didn't work for me and what, like, I think maybe could be a good thing to focus on. Whether, in this podcast talking about like focusing on motivation, or if it was like, as simple as like yes and, or like, cheating out and showing your front to the audience, just things that were like, this is what was working, and something for you to think about the next time you're up there, because you have the potential, but you just need to be getting better. And what would irritate me when there were some people who would come into the club who are kind of just like, I'm just here to have fun, and I'm just talking, and I'm just doing shit. And I'd be like, I really want to get better at this, and you're kind of inhibiting because you don't give a shit the way that I do. And not even like, I want everyone to give this shit the same amount I do, because I think I probably would be at the upper end of that. But I was like, the lower bound cannot be this low. You have to really care about this to do this, because otherwise it does not work.
Yeah, I think it's, and we found a good, since, and talking about that too, and even since like my first year to here, we found a good balance of like, because we try to preach people that want to join the club of like, you do not have to perform. This is as much there is as much a social part of this club as there is like a performance part of this club. If you do want to perform, we're gonna get you there. We're gonna get you to be able to do that. And I think it's been hard, but I think we found an area of like, we understand when the room needs critique, and then we understand when we're having fun, and when those things are hindering the other, because it can be as much the other way as the other. Because we've had practices where you've known those practices too, where we're fucking goofing off, nothing productive is happening, but we're laughing our asses off. There's also the practices maybe like after a show where like we just did a great show, and maybe I'm being too like constructive on a scene, and it's like we just did a show. We can have some fun.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is where it's like, I want people to have that goofiness, but like, and I don't want to have to be the person who's like, you can only have fun during these times. But there are times where it's like, it kind of sucked, but I took upon myself to be the boss in the room, which makes me sound like such a dick. Where I was just like, hey, I'm gonna give you some really honest feedback, because like there's a show in like a month, and like if you want to be in it, I have the ability to say no, and I want to see you get better, because I want you to be in this show.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, I hold this club to a very high standard, and so I'm going to hold everyone in it to a high standard. But at the same time, once you show those things, dick around and have fun. Like, because the thing is, like, I think the misconception people make is you come into improv and it's all fun and goofy, and you can say whatever you want. No. there are rules. You have to play in the game. It's like any other sport almost, where it's like you can't just like walk into like a basketball game and just start like running around with the ball and throwing it and put it in either hoop and doing things. No, there are organized rules that you have to learn. But then once you get within those rules, there are very cool things and ways to have fun, and like why, like pickup basketball is so fun because it can be intense, but also can be chill and goofy and stuff, but it's all within the rules.
Yeah.
And I don't think people have the appreciation that there are rules in improv that you have to stay in. But once you know them and you're in them, have fun. And and it's like, why I wouldn't critique Jay if Jay were dicking around, because it was like very clear that when he was doing that, he was still respecting the rules, and if he was bending them, he was bending them in a way that worked. It didn't hurt the scene, whereas some people would come in and nuke scenes and would be like, that was bad. I would never want to see that on stage during a show, whereas like people, again, like Jay would do things sometimes that would bend the rules, but I'd be like, that really worked. So let's talk about why that was fun. And again, makes me such a loser to explain the joke or explain the goofiness, but I was like, it's important for us to understand why that worked so that you don't take the wrong lesson from what he just did.
No, I agree. The explaining the joke and like breaking stuff down, I think what I also came to realize, because, I had never watched improv, but I watched stand-up on Netflix, so this was more so a realization I had in like the stand-up meetings of like the audience gets the luxury of seeing the luxury, I guess sounds weird, but they get the luxury of like seeing our show and doing the thing that we do to the best of our ability, and it's super fun, but we also get to see the raw and sometimes ugly parts of building ourselves up to that point, which I don't think it's like, we're doing the audience a favor. Sometimes the ugly stuff is also like, this would have entertained in a show.
Yeah.
It's not our best, but it still is funny.
Yeah.
And I enjoy because it's those I say ugly, and it's ugly sounds negative, but those ugly raw parts are also some of the best inside jokes that like this club's friendships have. And that's why those exist, is so that we can stay together to appreciate when we did this and then talk about when our show killed.
Yeah. And what made it so tricky for me with that was being around the club for what ended up being 4.5 years. There's always that part of me that felt very like the corporate side of it, whereas like, I love this because this is my friends, this is comedy, this is something I want to be doing. This is just something that like kinders joy in my life. At the same time, this is a club. This is almost a business in some ways. We do shows. We have to raise money. If you guys want to go to Georgetown, you have to make money.
Yeah.
And one of my things was I always wanted the audience to walk out and tell their friends and get more people in. And I noticed our audiences were shrinking, and I personally felt like it was because we were sacrificing the quality of our show to include everyone in the performance. And I was like, I don't want any scene to happen that I don't feel confident in. I did not want to put people in scenes if I didn't think they would do a good job with it. I wanted to really find where they would shine so they would do well. And so I always would be pushing people because I was like, we need to make money as a club. I want this club to exist after I go on. Like, very selfishly, I want to succeed in my comedy career and be able to say that Ridiculum helped me.
Yeah.
And know that Ridiculum still exists. And I was always worried that if we sacrificed quality and it just became friends kind of messing around that were like fake, not theater kids, like the club would implode on itself because it was giving up the quality of the show. And I think that when people get into then exec and they see the bank statements, the money disappearing, the lack of people at shows, is when you're suddenly like, oh shit, we have to get this club performing better, and may not have appreciated why I was being an asshole sometimes, because I just have to keep pushing the club to be better than it is.
Yeah, the push, it can be received not well sometimes, and I think it's just about, and I think everyone that's been an exec has at least one instance where maybe they're like what you're saying, where they were like, oh, I realized that this isn't always what it was 2 years ago, which is, I think, and as much as there's stressful parts to it, I've enjoyed the veil being lifted for me. I've enjoyed seeing like, okay, these are all the working things. This is why we do this. This is the reason, like, so that we can go to Georgetown, and so these bank statements say this. 3 months ago, you will have to have learned how to actually do yes and.
Yeah.
And that connection's cool. I've enjoyed seeing that.
And I haven't gotten to talk to everyone about this, but Siobhan being my girlfriend and having an exec position her senior year, in conversing with her, I know that she had that realization where she was like, oh, I have to be serious. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to have to talk to someone and be like, that wasn't good and here's why.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it didn't, I think, bother her. But I think when she was on the other side of it, she was like, oh, you care, like, a lot. Like, just, like, calm down. It's all fun. And then got there and was like, oh. And it's one of those things where it's like, you can't possibly understand it till you're there. But I am appreciative to see other people get there and have the realization I did, because it makes me feel a little less of a jerk, the way in the moment sometimes I would say and do things that I was like, this feels kind of mean, and I know you can't see it, but I promise you this is coming from a good place, that one day I hope you will recognize what I was really trying to do.
Oh, definitely. And to give you closure, yeah. Because, there was a few instances. I have a podcast about comedy. That does not mean that I've never gotten a negative critique from my friend Andrew Mister about an improv scene.
Yeah,
I've gotten
this
numerous.
Would be a great place to, like, maybe, I don't know where you are on timing, but, like, you want to tell me any things I've said to you that either felt good or also were, like, really hurtful?
Oh, no,
anything
I can't.
or thing
I
that
can't
you're like,
think of,
damn, I really, like, disappointed Andrew.
I can't think of anything specific, but, like, yeah, in the early times of me joining the club, like there's a threshold that I hit, at least, where I was like, I'm in it. And no matter who you are, once you feel like I'm in it, I'm in the club. I think it was probably after a show. It was after my show too. So it was like, and then everyone will get a little bit of too much confidence of like, all right, cool. And then I probably did some wacky shit in a practice scene, and like you or Pat or Rebecca or even hearing anything from Jay was also scary, because Jay didn't often give notes. So if Jay gave notes, and I knew he was the best, one of the best,
and I would always get in Jay's ear and be like, you have to give notes. When you say it, it's going to matter more than if it just comes from me. And it's always like, Andrew doesn't like anything.
I was going to say that is it. I think you and Jay both taught me improv, but I was like, if it comes from Jay, and this is because Jay doesn't talk as much, but also because you said most of these notes, and the notes meant things, but if it came from Jay, I was like, shit, I gotta get serious.
Yeah, and like it like, to lift the veil, there were many exec meetings where I would be like, to Becca and Jay specifically, like,
yeah,
you guys have to give a note from time to time. I'm begging you, because I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but if you come in and say it, it's going to mean something different to those people, because they're going to be like, oh, this is like a problem. Just like Andrew's a little more picky with people.
It was a similar feeling. I know we're not great on time, so we'll wrap up soon. But it was a similar feeling for different reasons when, like, this year Jack would give notes. Because Jack, and he's grown so much in the club and within an exec position too. I'm super excited for him to lead next year. But because Jack is like Jack, he's like fun and he's chill and he's good at improv, and so but hearing a note from Jack isn't necessarily foreboding, but it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because Jack doesn't give notes a ton, and he's also a younger one, but Jack, who usually is doing good in scenes, has said something. And it's not like Jacob and Owen over here. I've heard a note from someone I don't hear from often, and this means something now.
Yeah.
It means at least something else. Yeah, I totally get what you mean. And I've a few times been to Jack, like, I said, like, beginning of the year, where I'm like, talk more. Like, you're a leader of the club. You can have as much authority on scenes as we do. Not just because I'm older, that means I know more about it. Like, so hearing it from Jack, I've also noticed, like, in the room of, like, okay, Jack said that, and I've like shared a laugh with Jack, and Jacob's usually like, hey, how's it going? I'm the president of this club. So it definitely changes perspective.
Yeah, and to close this from my end, what made Jill coming back my senior year so nice was because she did not care how
in the stand-up room specifically, and from my experience, did not give a shit.
Yeah.
Gave the note to make sure you were better.
And even in improv too, she'd just be like, that sucked. That was bad. And then we'd explain it, but we definitely needed the one person who like wasn't as bothered by it as I was. I couldn't play the heel that she played.
Jill would be like, she wouldn't actually be sitting in the corner of the room, but she'd be sitting in the corner of the room with like a cigarette and be like, that was horrible, honey, or something.
Yeah.
Like, it was like that kind of a, and that was a different feeling of like hearing a note from Jill. Was like, Jill does talk a little bit. If I heard it from Jill might, it was a different kind of than when I heard it from Jay. Yeah, it was. I had, I think, all unique reactions when every single one of the older people were giving notes.
And it's the dynamic of the exec.
And I love that that's the case. That's what I've enjoyed, I think, the most about my exec this year in the improv room and also in stand-up room, even though that's not as many people, is that's where I get maybe the most help, because I've caught myself giving notes before and gone, well, I don't know if that's right, or like I doubt myself sometimes. Owen's really good at go ahead and pointing stuff out. Like in the room, in the meetings, in the practices, that's where I've valued, I think, my exec the most this year, because they are incredibly helpful. If I'm not fully articulating an idea, Justin's like, this is what he meant, and that is correct, and that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Did we get to the end of your comedy journey as far as we know it?
No.
Like in bits and pieces?
No. Yeah, I mean, we reached the end of stand-up. We've started to touch into script writing, but I mean, we haven't even touched Villanova Television yet.
Oh, shit, you're right,
We
yeah.
haven't touched one semester, the thing that we first did.
There's a lot to talk.
Personal scripts. I mean, there's
a lot to talk about.
Is there a part 3?
There could be a part 3, or we could talk for another hour. It's up to you.
I can't do another hour.
I figured. No, we definitely, I think, because it's tough too, and I think even if I get through like the people that I'm thinking of, I'm gonna start calling other past guests back too, because it's like I've edited and listened to your episode, and I know there's a realm of comedy that we didn't touch on, and I want you to talk about it more, or I'd like for you to.
Do you want to tease it for part 3?
Well, tease it.
Yeah.
You're probably gonna be a part 3.
Yeah,
Probably gonna have you on.
I'll be around.
Next time on, and we're gonna do like hold on, when we're gonna do like a clip show style thing.
Oh, can I do the?
We're gonna.
You'll do the next time.
Sort of like a trailer,
and then I'll tell you what. I'll be the next time.
I was thinking we just go in media res to like things we'll say next time.
Yeah.
Okay, next time on My Friends the Comedians.
Jacob, put your shirt back on!
I wanted to keep it off though.
I have a bug!
So tell me, what was that like when you decided to blow up all of Tollentine?
And it was a real shame that he had also brought a gun.
You know what? I'm actually done. You're off my show. I'm tired of this.
And that's the second time Disney Channel fired me.
Tune in next time for Andrew Mister Part 3. Glad we got that
Can't believe
in.
we're gonna have to like find a reason to say all those lines in the next one.
We got to fit them in somehow, and I got to kick you off my show at some point.
Yeah, I gotta get on Disney Channel twice now.
Disney Channel twice, yeah, and we'll somehow mention that. And I can't wait. I guess we're taking our shirts off, or I'm taking it off, and you're not for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, this has been Andrew Mister here on My Friends the Comedians. Thank you for joining me once again. We'll bring you back in the distant or near future to talk some more about VTV sides of things, because you have a lot to say about that as well.
It was another very formative part of my comedy journey that you can't tell it without that part of it. So we're missing part of the equation, and we got to fill it in.
We're missing part of the equation, and we need to figure out what's next. So
it's like Interstellar, where she's like, we need to go back to my room and look at the watch and figure out like time.
And Matthew McConaughey's like hiding in the book stacks.
I guess that'll be like Jay in the sound.
Jay in the sound foam maybe, and he's like doing and he's crying.
Don't leave, Murph.
No, Murph. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'd like to also thank Andrew Mister for the use of this podcast theme song, Cruisin'. And my name is Jacob Marscola, reminding you to laugh, especially when it's funny.